Live from our studios on QCell Avenue, this is the Qtv Nightly News, which is also on Q Radio 103.3 FM. And I am Jul Denjai. Thank you for joining us. Here are the headlines. At the close of the 2026 African Caucus meeting in Banjul on Wednesday, African finance ministers, central bank governors and development partners adopted the Banjul Declaration, a strategic roadmap aimed at accelerating investment, fostering innovation and driving inclusive economic growth across the continent. The Gambia Police Force is investigating two separate suspected murder cases in the West Coast and Central River regions, which resulted in the deaths of two people. And with less than 6 months to the December 5th presidential election, Banjul Mayor Rohey Malik Lowe is calling for greater female representation in political leadership. In international news, we examine how escalating U.S.-Iran tensions are influencing Africa's security, economy, and search for new strategic opportunities. In sports news, having had an unprecedented 10 teams qualify for the 2026 World Cup, Morocco are the last team standing as they carry the hopes of Africa into the quarterfinals. Those are the headlines. Coming up next, the news in detail. Thank you very much for staying with us. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News. Now, at the close of the 2026 African Caucus meeting in Banjul on Wednesday, African finance ministers, central bank governors and development partners adopted the Banjul Declaration, a strategic roadmap aimed at accelerating growth and investment, fostering innovation and driving inclusive economic growth across the continent. The gathering also concluded with South Africa being elected to host the 2027 African Caucus meeting. Lolly M. Kamara attended, and this is her report.
The 2026 African Caucus meeting in Banjul concluded after 3 days of high-level discussions centered on advancing investment, innovation and inclusive growth to transform Africa's economies. The Gambia's Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs and Chair of the African Caucus, Sidi Keta, said the meeting provided African leaders with a unified platform to confront the continent's economic challenges while identifying practical solutions to unlock sustainable and inclusive growth.
Our discussions have been candid, substantive, and forward-looking. We have examined challenges confronting Africa's economies, including constrained fiscal space, rising vulnerabilities, and increasing global uncertainties. At the same time, we have reaffirmed our confidence in Africa's immense potential rooted in resilience of our people and the values of our resources, pace of our innovation, and the promises of a deeper regional integration.
Delegates also reached consensus on several key priorities, including strengthening domestic resource mobilization, fiscal stability, build resilient financial systems and domestic capital markets, supporting micro, small and medium-sized enterprises as engines of job creation, promoting value addition and industrialization, and investing in human capital to develop a skilled, productive and future-ready workforce. The meeting concluded with the adoption of the Banjul Declaration, committing African nations to accelerate reforms, attract investment and promote inclusive, sustainable growth. The Gambia's finance minister and outgoing African Caucus chair, CDK Mketa, urged participating countries to move beyond dialogue and turn the commitments made in Banjul into concrete actions and measurable results.
The outcome of these 2026 African Caucus deliberations will be summarized in our memoranda to be delivered to the heads of the IMF and the World Bank, together known as the Bretton Woods institutions, in October 2026 during the annual meetings in Bangkok, Thailand. We therefore look forward to this historic moment done in Banjul, July 8, 2026, under the signature of the Chair of the African Caucus 2026, Honorable Sidi Keta, Governor of the World Bank and IMF.
South Africa formally took over the African Caucus chairmanship with Finance Minister Enoch Gordon Wagner, thanking the Gambia for hosting and pledging to build on the Banjul outcomes.
It is therefore both an honor and a privilege on behalf of the government of the Republic of South Africa to accept the responsibility of chairing the next African Caucus meeting. We would also be truly delighted to welcome you to South Africa for the 2027 African Caucus, and we look forward to hosting you in the spirit of African Solidarity Partnership and shared purposes.
The 2026 African Caucus ended with renewed optimism that stronger partnerships, strategic investments, and collective action can unlock Africa's economic potential and drive lasting prosperity. For Qtv News, Lolly M. Kamar.
The Gambia Police Force is investigating two separate suspected murder cases in the West Coast region and Central River regions, which resulted in deaths of two people. Jacqueline Colley tells us more.
In updates issued on the 5th and 6th of July, the police say in one of the incidents, 14-year-old Mohamed Kamara of Darubusumbala in the West Coast region died after allegedly being assaulted by a group of individuals on Saturday, 4th of July. According to the preliminary investigations, the teenager sustained serious injuries during the alleged assault. He was initially treated at the Sukuta Health Center before being transferred to Kanifing General Hospital, where he later died from his injuries. Police say they have so far arrested 3 suspects, aged between 13 and 15, who are assisting with the investigations. Authorities add that efforts are ongoing to identify and apprehend other individuals believed to have been involved in the incident. In another case, police in Bansang are investigating the suspected murder of Abdullah Job, a 43-year-old shopkeeper, following an incident reported on July 5th in Welingara Dembal Village, Central River Region South. Preliminary findings indicate that Job sustained fatal stab wounds during an altercation with another individual from the same community. Investigators have processed the crime scene and say inquiries are continuing. During a recent press briefing organized by the Ministry of Information, Inspector General of Police Sidi Mukhtar Toure addressed the matter of recent homicide cases.
Analysis that we have, in our own view, it's mainly domestic by nature. The measures that we have taken and continue to take to mitigate some of these preventable deaths is to continue our intelligence-led policing, collection of crime-related areas, hotspots, and to ensure that the timely intelligence sharing is done.
According to the Ministry of Interior, at least 39 more than homicide cases were officially recorded between 2022 and 2025. Knives have frequently been used in robberies and gang-related disputes, including the fatal attacks on Bureau de Change workers in Westfield and Bruceby in 2024 and 2025, as well as the killing of a young man during an altercation in Fajara in 2025. The recent fatal stabbing in Latrikunda German, together with these two latest cases, have renewed public concern over crime prevention and community safety. The Gambia Police Force has urged parents, guardians, and community leaders to guide children and young people away from violence and unlawful behavior. The police also called on members of the public to resolve disputes through lawful means rather than taking the law into their own hands. Reporting for QTV News, I am Jacqueline Colley.
Now, with less than 6 months to the December 5th presidential election, Banjul Mayor Rohey Malick Lowe is calling for greater female representation in political leadership. In an exclusive interview with QTV, she urges women to turn their voting strength into leadership and decision-making. Usman Jatta has the details.
Rohey Malick Lowe's journey reflects the growing role of women in leadership. Born and raised in Banjul, she made history in 2018 as the city's first female mayor.
With the steadfast support of our partners,
5 years later, she became the first mayor to win re-election. Beyond the Gambia, she serves as the president of Raffaele Africa, being elected to that position in 2022, and is the vice chair of the Global Parliament of Mayors, championing women's empowerment, youth empowerment, and stronger local governance.
Empower women, give them positions. So when women lead, we are not leading in the house. We are leading, and not leading only community, we are leading the nation. So being the mayor of Banjul does not only stop me from empowering women that are beyond Banjul. We can do it. They should believe in themselves. They should believe that they can do it. 5 years ago, nobody thinks that we will have this funding to have water all over. So today, at least I can say 200,000 women have empowered themselves from these projects.
From infrastructure and environmental initiatives to programs supporting women and young people, Mayor Law says development must go hand in hand with equal representation. She believes women should not only vote during elections, but also take part in shaping the country's future.
We don't need anything. We just need policies to be changed. That is all we are asking for. We are not saying give us money. We are not saying give us anything. We are just saying change the policies, elect us to sit at the table where policies are made, and then we can do it. We are the nation. And how many women are voting? It's not just to be on the queue. We are not just going to vote elections because we want to be on the queue. No, we have to be there so that we can be a change.
Women make up more than half of the Gambia's population and the majority of registered voters. Mayor Law argues that this numerical strength should also be reflected in leadership, with more women represented where national decisions and laws are made.
I'm telling everybody to go out and vote. If you have a woman candidate, vote them. Vote them in. Yes. We are not hiding our feelings now. We live in a global village. So women should sit at the table where women issues are discussed. Every women policy in the Gambia are made by men, and they will do it to suit them. So now we are saying elections are coming, especially local government elections, vote female candidates to sit there.
Mayor Malik Low's message is simple. Women should not only vote, but they should also be voted into positions to help guide the affairs of the nation. Osman Jatta, QTV News.
The report by Usman Jatta will take us for a commercial break. When we return, we have more national, international, as well as sports news stories for you. To stay tuned. Welcome back, and this is QTV News, and I am Jul Denjai. Here are the rest of tonight's stories. At a community engagement in Birkama today, as part of its ongoing week-long campaign against irregular migration and modern slavery by the ECOWAS Parliament, West Coast Regional Anti-Trafficking Official C.D. Bojang says stronger border controls, greater public awareness, and increased support for young people are critical to reversing the trend. Aliu Sise reports.
Addressing the engagement at Suba Ward in Brikama South, C.D. Bojang of the National Agency Against Trafficking in Persons says many victims of trafficking are lured with promises of jobs in restaurants and beauty salons, only to find themselves forced into commercial sexual exploitation after arriving in the Gambia. He revealed that some victims, including girls as young as 12, are manipulated through threats and intimidation before being exploited by trafficking syndicates.
Trafficking is something that is affecting everybody, whether directly or indirectly. When you look at some of the cases that we investigated, that has to do with non-nationals. Most of the cases that we investigate at NATIP mostly involve Nigerian nationals that are brought into the country to come and engage them into sexual exploitation. And then the manner that they are recruited and then transported to the Gambia, it is very embarrassing, and then it's also very sad.
According to him, the agency investigated about 30 trafficking cases over the past year, most involving sexual exploitation. More than 50 victims were rescued, over 30 suspects arrested, and 4 convictions secured, while several other cases remain before the courts. He blamed porous borders, organized criminal networks, and increasing pressure on young people to seek quick financial success for the persistence of the crime.
If you look at most of these cases that are happening, the pressure is coming from our own parents. You are at home, a female child, you are not doing anything at home after completing your senior school. Now you are at home, your own parents are telling you that, look at Fadu. Fadu is assisting her mother. Fadu is building houses there. Fadu is buying cars. So you are here, you are not doing anything for me. So if you are giving your own children a pressure, what do you expect from if they don't have any job to do?
The Brikama Forum also had emotional testimonies from irregular migration returnees, including Alimoto Sajo and Alaji Kante. Kante recounted surviving torture, imprisonment, and witnessing the brutal killing of fellow migrants, including a mother and her son. Members of the ECOWAS Parliament, including Maimuna Sise, stressed that while migration is a fundamental reality, irregular migration exposes young people to exploitation, trafficking, and even death.
We cannot stop it, but we can try to minimize it. That's why ECOWAS Parliament comes with this idea to sensitize the community. We know the loopholes, we know the frustration and why the youths are venturing into this kind of dangerous journey, but still now nothing stops them not to go.
Community leaders welcome the initiative, describing public sensitization as one of the most effective tools to address the root causes of irregular migration. Honorable Alaji S. Dabo, the minority leader of the National Assembly and a member of the delegation to ECOWAS Parliament, said the Gambia continues to bear a disproportionate impact of irregular migration.
And I want to thank the community for hosting us, the elders for taking your time to receive us, and then the youths for your participation in this dialogue.
The campaign forms part of broader regional efforts to combat human trafficking, protect vulnerable populations, and promote safe, legal migration. The engagements continue tomorrow in Bara, North Bank region. Reporting for QTV News, I am Aliou Sise.
Coming up next, we have international news. The renewed escalation of the U.S.-Iran conflict, marked by fresh waves of military strikes and U.S. President Donald Trump's declaration on Wednesday that the ceasefire had ended, is prompting African nations to reassess their economic and security priorities as they pursue greater strategic autonomy and seek to capitalize on emerging geopolitical opportunities. Mam Nabuka has the details.
For decades, African nations have navigated a global system where external crises dictate domestic realities. But the escalating conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran is now driving a fundamental shift by forcing the continent to transform these historical vulnerabilities into a coordinated push for geopolitical autonomy and mutual self-reliance. On Wednesday, following an overnight escalation where the U.S. launched more than 80 retaliatory military strikes against Iranian targets, and Iran responded by firing drones and missiles at U.S. bases in Bahrain and Kuwait, President Donald Trump declared that the U.S.-Iran ceasefire is over at the 36th NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey. The immediate fallout exposed the fragility of traditional supply lines as disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz and the Red Sea instantly triggered spikes in fuel and fertilizer prices, a reality that heavily impacts African economies that remain entirely dependent on foreign markets for refined petroleum products. To break this cycle of economic dependency, a wave of domestic and regional industrialization is sweeping the continent, anchored by landmark initiatives like Nigeria's newly operational 650,000 barrel per day Dangote refinery in West Africa, which is drastically cutting foreign fuel imports and inspiring African nations to initiate joint venture refinery projects aimed at securing the Indian Ocean coast. The push to reduce economic dependency is gaining momentum at the African Caucus 2026 meeting in Banjul, where financial leaders are advancing regional policies, trade integration, and reforms to unlock capital for stronger domestic supply chains. Africa's shift toward greater self-reliance is also reshaping its defense strategy. As Western powers focus more attention on the Middle East, Countries such as Russia and Turkey are expanding their security roles in Africa, particularly in regions facing instability. However, African leaders increasingly see these partnerships as temporary measures, with conflicts such as Sudan's civil war highlighting the risks of relying heavily on external actors. This has strengthened calls for stronger domestic defense capabilities and regional security cooperation. Ultimately, what began as a severe external shockwave is being leveraged by African nations as a historic catalyst to decouple from foreign dependencies, effectively turning global disruption into a unified launchpad for genuine economic and geopolitical independence. Mam Nabuka, reporting for QTV News.
Up next, we have sports news. Now, having an unprecedented 10 teams qualify for the 2026 World Cup, Morocco are the last team standing, carrying the hopes of Africa into the quarter-finals. This came after a dramatic and heartbreaking round of 32 and round of 16 matches that saw all other continental teams eliminated from the world's biggest football competition. Jacqueline Colley gives us the details.
The World Cup saw the disappointing exit of Tunisia, the force of Africa's representatives, being eliminated without a single point after 3 defeats in the group stage. From then on, a regular pattern will be established throughout the next phase of the competition, with African teams pushing more fancied or higher-ranked teams, often leading only to lose by a late goal or a flurry of late goals. South Africa seemed to set the tone for the rest of Africa, as they exited their first ever round of 32 appearance, losing to co-host Canada by a lone goal scored in the 92nd minute. Senegal also broke the hearts of their millions of fans both home and away, after they looked destined for the next round before blowing a comfortable 2-0 lead against Belgium, conceding twice in the 86 and 89 minutes before collapsing 3-2 in the 5th minute of added-on time in extra time. Both DR Congo and Ivory Coast experienced similar outcomes. The Congolese kept England at bay for much of the game, having taken a surprise 7-minute lead before conceding goals in the 75th and 86th minutes to lose 2-1. Ivory Coast, meanwhile, lost after Erling Haaland scored a decisive 86-minute goal to break a 1-1 deadlock after Ahmed Diallo had drawn the sides level with a 74th minute equalizer. Meanwhile, Cape Verde earned a lot of praise from global fans after pushing tournament favourites Argentina to the absolute brink before finally succumbing 3-2 in extra time. The World Cup debutants put up a great fight during the tournament. The Blue Sharks were given a heroic welcome back home, landing on the 5th of July, the country's Independence Day. Unable to build on their group results were Ghana, whose 1-0 victory over Panama had been enough for them to progress, who went on to lose to Colombia and Algeria, who bowed out after 2-0 loss to Switzerland. Africa's hopes at the tournament now rest with Morocco after their fellow North Africans, Egypt, lost to a Lionel Messi-inspired Argentina after failing to protect a 2-0 lead with 12 minutes to go. Morocco maintained their impressive unbeaten run by holding the Netherlands to a 1-1 draw before winning 3-2 on penalties. The Atlas Lions, who then went on to defeat co-host Canada 3-0 in the round of 16, will now face France in a highly anticipated quarter-final rematch of the 2022 World Cup semi-final, which was won by France. Before their heartbreaking round of 16 loss to Argentina, Egypt had progressed in dramatic fashion, after battling a 1-1 draw with Australia after extra time and then converting 4 of their penalties to claim a 4-2 shootout victory in their first ever World Cup knockout victory. Their exit leaves Morocco carrying Africa's hope into the quarterfinals. Having reached the semi-final at the previous World Cup, they will be hoping to at least equal or better that record. Their opponent, France, are many people's favorite to win the tournament. All of Africa has its hope pinned on them. Overall, it has been a good World Cup for most of the African teams and fans of African football. Reporting for QTV News, I'm Jacqueline Colley.
That report there by Jacqueline Coley brings us to the end of this news bulletin. But before we go, here is a recap of the headlines. At the close of the 2026 African Caucus meeting in Banjul on Wednesday, African finance ministers, central bank governors and development partners adopted the Banjul Declaration, a strategic roadmap aimed at accelerating investment, fostering innovation and driving inclusive economic growth across the continent. The Gambia Police Force is investigating 2 separate suspected murder cases in the West Coast and Central River regions, which resulted in the deaths of 2 people. With less than 6 months to the December 5th presidential election, Banjul Mayor Rohey Malik Low is calling for greater female representation in political leadership. In international news, we examine how escalating U.S.-Iran tensions are influencing Africa's security, economy, and search for new strategic opportunities. And in sports, we haven't had an unprecedented 10 teams qualify for the 2026 World Cup. Morocco are the last team standing as they carry the hopes of Africa into the quarterfinals. This is all we have for you in this edition of the News Bulletin. Do join us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. for another News Bulletin. Until then, survive from us and enjoy the rest of our programs.